Hello fellow orchid lovers, it's Danielle here with a culture video on my Dendrobiums. So I'm relatively new to growing Dendrobiums in water culture. I've only had Dendrobiums for the past, I would say maybe 2 years tops. At least a year, maybe a year and a half, possibly 2 years for my older ones, the ones I've had the longest. But I very quickly fell in love with this type of orchid. I was very intimidated at first by Dendrobiums because I didn't know much about Dendrobiums, and I know a lot of them are quote-unquote winter resting, and that scared me because I wasn't certain I could give them the care that they needed. I have a tendency to overwater things, so growing something that requires little to no water for any length of time goes against the grain with me. And I didn't know if I'd be capable of growing them successfully. So as you can see, it's not a huge collection of Dendrobiums. I think this is it so far. I did recently place an order though, well, more than one, and I have some Dendrobiums coming, so I'll share those with you when I get them, but just very, simply, as far as the way that I grow them. So different Dendrobiums require different types of care. So you're going to want to make sure that the type of Dendrobium that you get, you understand what the care is for that Dendrobium. Like I said, there are some that require a quote-unquote rest. This is actually one of my first Dendrobiums, and this is the Dendrobium unicum, and I have had this one the longest, and it is a winter resting type. And so far so good. She's bloomed for me every year. This is the second year that she's bloomed for me, so I've definitely had her over 2 years, maybe 2.5 years. As you can see, she has all the old bloom spikes here. Her older canes are really desiccating, so some of those can probably come off. This was last year's cane, and this one down here. She's just got one new growth so far this year. I'm really hoping she gets 2, but so far she's only got the one. Now, over the winter, I did keep her roots a little too wet, and she did lose some of them. So she's not hydrating as well as she should be. So you can see some of the leaves are a little bit crinkled because it's not being hydrated properly. So right now I'm trying to work with her to keep her, well fed and well watered, but at the same time not too wet, because that's the reason why she lost some of her roots. So, if you're not paying attention, you can have something like this happen. We kind of had a busy winter and busy early spring, and so I wasn't paying as much attention to her as I normally would, and she did suffer for that. So typically, Dendrobiums are thirsty, and they like feed during the summer, during their growth season, whatever that may be for wherever you live. There are certain areas in the world that are flipped to mine. So like right now, you'd be going into winter, I'm going into summer. So you go according to your seasons, but yeah, so they like water. They don't like to drown. No orchid likes to drown. So just keep that in mind. The Latouria types I keep in water at all times. So they are in full water culture, whereas some of the other Dendrobiums, I do more of a semi-water culture. So Latouria types to me are some of the easiest orchids to grow. They just keep putting out new growths and new spikes. And I mean, this orchid started spiking for me back when we still lived on Long Island, which was the beginning of the year. We moved here at the end of March, and she still has the same blooms. So they last an incredibly long time. Now, last year she had 7 spikes. This year she only got the 1, but then she decided she's gonna put out another spike for me. So they do that. As they get these new growths and the growths are ready to spike, you can have blooms kind of, several times a year on Latourias, which is really exciting. So not only are they easy to grow, but they also can give you quite a show as far as flowers are concerned. So I'm very, very excited about, you know, more blooms on her. And as you can see, each cane can bloom several times. Every single one of these is a different blooming on this particular cane. Now, this is now a leafless cane and probably won't bloom again, but it bloomed several times before it was done. And like I said, just constant growth, constant new growths. You can see 2 on this. This is one of her latest growths. She's got 2 new growths at the base of that one. She's got a lot of new roots. So she's very happy in my care. And this is my favorite Latouria. I love these blooms. This is, I'm sorry, I didn't tell you what the name was. This is my Dendrobium atroviolaceum. And I love the way she smells. I love the way she looks. She is just stunning. So, yeah, so she's one of my Latourias. Another one of my Latourias that's doing really well is my microchip. Her spikes are starting to go over. She had, I don't remember how many, but this was full of flowers. And unfortunately, they're starting to drop. I don't see signs of any new spikes on her, I don't think. But she has a lot of new growths that just matured. So you see how the stem, the bottoms of the cane are slightly more red. Those are newer canes. So, you know, we'll see what she does. Maybe she's going to give me a second show this year. Another one that's giving me a second show is my Nora Takanaga. So these blooms have been around as long as the atroviolaceum, and they show no signs of fading. And now she's giving me another bloom there. And then there's another cane. I don't want to hurt her. Let me see. There's another cane. Yep. It's hiding under that leaf. That she's got another flower coming. So, you know, a couple more blooms. But these haven't faded yet. So they're going to join the crowd. But yeah, this one's not really fragrant, but the atroviolaceum is very fragrant, and I love it. I was hoping my green apples would have popped open by the time I was going to make this video, but it hasn't. It has 2 spikes. That one back there is a little further behind. This one's probably going to start popping open any day. If you don't know what the flowers are, they are green like this, and the centers are black, which is really, really cool. Very alien looking, which I really enjoy. I like flowers that are different, you know, that are just a little quirky and strange. So that's the green apples. Now the green apples, I wanted to, relatively new acquisition. I've only had this orchid a year. I got this last June at a local orchid show that I went to, and it had a few blooms on it, not that many, but a few. And then it started to, over the summer, get a new growth down here, which then promptly rotted and fell off. Now, that happens occasionally to plants that can't sustain the new growth. And honestly, the root system on this plant is basically mush. I haven't really had time to go in and remove, you know how I like to remove the velamen off of, you know, dead roots, so that there's nothing rotting in the glass, but it still has something to, you know, wick the moisture to the plant. I mean, it does have a few roots in there, which is really good. Actually, that's the first time I saw those. But basically, the plant had no source of sustaining that new growth because the roots were so terrible, and so it aborted it. So that was a little bit of an unpleasant thing for me, because, you know, I was looking forward to a new cane. But it will grow another new cane. Probably when it's done blooming, it'll start on another new growth. This is my newest Latouria. This is Roy Takanaga. So no blooms, never had any blooms that I could see. Same thing with this orchid, you know, I don't give them a ton of water. They don't need a ton of water. Water culture is not about just filling the glass with water and throwing the roots in it. Water culture is finding that delicate balance between air and water. Your roots need air and good air circulation. They do need water too, yes, and they need nutrients, but You don't need to give them a whole lot in order for the entire root system to be saturated. They can wick up the water. You don't need to drown them. Please don't drown them. Because if you drown them, then they lose their roots, like my unicum, and then you only get one cane, or possibly you kill the orchid. So yeah, you got to find that delicate balance. And that all has to do with your environment and the way that you grow. If you're the type of person that you can't check on your plants, you know, when you first switch them over to water culture, then start low. Start your water levels really low and see what your plants do. Because if you're not watching and the water level's too high, by the time you realize, you may have a dead plant or a plant that's in a state of I need rescue. So this one is my Dendrobium chrysotoxum. So this one also came to me without any previous bloom spikes. I don't know if this is a blooming size orchid. I'm very, very, very new to Dendrobiums, but I loved the way the flowers looked on this one, so I decided to give it a try. Its canes are very interesting, and they're very like knobby on the top and chunky, which is really cool. It's technically 2 plants. And again, I mean, I just watered this yesterday, and I put the water here and it drank it. And look, the entire root system is saturated. I don't need to give this orchid water again. Just because the water level dropped, the roots are still wet. If I keep this type of moisture up, I'm gonna start rotting roots, and I'm gonna start rotting pseudobulbs, and I mean canes and the rhizomes and everything like that. So again, it's not about just throwing water in the glass. It's about finding what keeps your roots happy and not suffocating your roots with water. The Latourias are a little bit more thirsty, but in the winter, they really don't grow as quickly. And so you have to, you know, change how much you give them. Like, for instance, this is my microchip. I watered her yesterday. Those roots are dry. You know, like she sucked up all that moisture and she needs more. Oh, I just saw a new growth. See that right there? That's a new growth. He is headed in the wrong direction. And that's another thing. You have to keep an eye on what the plant is doing as far as grow. Oh, yeah, definitely in the wrong direction. Because now I'm going to have to put this plant in a slightly larger pot and stake it so that that new growth can go up instead of out. Because if it hits the side of the glass, it could decide to abort that new growth. So again, you got to be watching and paying attention. Yeah, so some of them are a little more thirsty. Some of them aren't as thirsty. If they have a bad root system, be very careful about hydrating. Rotten roots have a tendency, or roots that are rotting or dying have a tendency to stay damp longer. Because they're not doing a good job sucking up the water. And so that's when you're going to encounter possible rot of the plant itself. So just be very careful with bad roots. Like, for instance, this orchid, this is my Firewings. And she bloomed for me this year. So that was nice. She gave me 4 buds and 4 blooms. But this is not a healthy plant. At all. I mean, you can see by the canes, they're very desiccated. Her root system was just a horror show when I got her. Just terrible, and it has not improved. These are the first new growths that she's gotten for me, this one here and this one in the front. So they are her only hope. I need their roots to save this plant. So I'm just hoping that they grow very quickly and start putting out roots so that this plant can get better hydration, because I do water the plant, but I also am very careful because there's no way to keep this plant's rhizome out of the water when I'm watering her. And so I can't expose her to water for very long. Is that another new growth? Oh my goodness gracious me, that was not a very good zoom. Yeah, looks like another new growth there. Wow, okay. Anyway, so I can't just plunk her in water and leave her there for days. So I'm doing more of a semi-water culture with her, where I put you know, these roots and the base of her rhizome in the water for a couple of days, usually no more than 2. And especially because it's hot, I can do that. It's very hot. I have my humidifier going and my fan on at all times right now. Because the water won't affect her rhizome. I'll take her out of the water and within a day, they're dry. So that's a semi-water culture. I can't keep her in full water culture. If I kept these roots and the base of these rhizomes in water 24/7, I would have a dead plant. So you have to adjust what you do, the water levels you give, what kind of water culture, whether it's full water culture or semi-water culture, based on what your plant is doing. Now, you know, you may think, oh, this plant is dehydrated, she needs moisture. Yes, she does. But you need to balance that, because if you don't, you will kill the plant. So that's her. I showed you my unicum. And then there's this one. This is my Dendrobium spectacebal. I can never say that right, so you're probably all laughing at me, and you're justified. But I can't say it. Anyways, she is thirsty. I just watered her yesterday too. But she has a lot of algae on her roots because I had such a bad algae problem. So they look so dark and ugly and gross. But she grew this cane recently. I've also had her since June. I got her June of last year, the same time I got my green apples. Same orchid supplier, actually. Because I've been wanting this one for a while. I think that the flowers are so funky looking. Again, me with the funky looking flowers. I think that they're really cool. So I purchased her at the same time. And she grew this cane. And now she's working on this cane. Now this cane, I don't think it's going to get much taller than this, which is crazy because this one's so huge and this one's not. But you know, it is what it is. But anyways, she's never bloomed, which I would think a plant of this size would have bloomed, but she came to me with no previous signs of spikes or anything like that. So I'm hoping maybe this latest cane might bloom for me. I don't know. But we'll just keep watering her and feeding her and seeing if we can tweak things until we make her happy. She definitely is a light lover. I can put her right up against the glass and it doesn't even seem like that's enough light for her. So, and that's the other thing about these orchids too, is that some of them love light and some of them don't. This is another one that loves light. Like I put her right up against the glass and it doesn't seem like enough for her. Whereas I had my green apples pretty close to the glass and you can see the leaves have like that slightly purplish tint to them, like they were getting too much light. So I had to move her back. My Atroviolaceum likes bright indirect light. So she likes the window to be bright, but she doesn't like to be directly in the sun. The microchip doesn't mind it so much. I don't think the Nora Takanaga minds it. And I'm breaking the Roy Takanaga in slowly because I'm not sure what this one likes yet. So, you know, again, you just have to kind of watch what your plant is doing and adjust accordingly. Look at the health of your plant and adjust accordingly. And don't suffocate your roots. I think that's the #1 mistake that people make when they start water culture, is that they don't watch the water levels. Someone that I used to watch quite frequently on YouTube before I started growing in water culture did a water culture experiment and, you know, said that they didn't think that water culture was a good way to grow orchids. But I was kind of frustrated because the way that they did it was so haphazard. They didn't do any research on the method at all. They just chucked the orchid in water and said, look, it's not doing well. Of course it's not doing well. You didn't do any research. You didn't try to apply it properly. So, you know, it's all about watching the plant, figuring out what the plant needs. And it is a difficult way to grow. This is my polar fire. I put out a bunch of keikis and then keeled over. So these are the keikis. It is a difficult way to grow. It's not the easiest way to grow. I think it's more difficult than quite a few methods. But if you get it right, it is so rewarding. I mean, I love it. I love being able to see the roots. I love being able to know what's going on with the root system. You know, with my unicum, if this was in bark, I wouldn't have known that I had killed off the roots. You know, I would have seen this one single new growth this year, and I would have seen that the leaves were crinkling, and I would have started chucking more water at it, thinking that it was thirsty because it's hot. Not realizing the roots are killed because I already drowned them. You know, so I would have done the exact opposite of what I needed to do to save the plant. So I just love this method. I love growing this way. I have such success growing this way. I know it is difficult, but if you guys want to try it, my advice to you is keep a sharp eye on your plant and start off slow. Give them a little bit of water. See if that's enough. If it's not, if the plant looks thirsty, give it a little more. What's the condition of the roots? What's the condition of the plant? What's the plant telling you? And base your decisions not on what I'm doing, but on your environment and on what your plant needs and what it's telling you. So I hope that was helpful. If you are going to try a Dendrobium in water culture, I would suggest a Latouria just because they are so easy to grow. But again, watch your water levels, make sure you're not drowning them. So I'll be back soon with a Miltoniopsis video. And then also I have to do like my miscellaneous orchids. So like my Maxillaria tenuifolia, my Encyclia radiata, those, I don't really know what category they fall in. So I'm kind of just going to do like a miscellaneous category. Oh, I completely forgot about my Nobile. Duh. So this is a new plant. I just got this. Oh shoot, I don't remember when. Oh no, I got this when I got this. Did I get this one? No, I don't remember. I'm sorry. But this is Dendrobium Asian Beauty Eden, and I can't wait for this one to bloom. I love these blooms. They are just gorgeous. Now this orchid, she put out little nubs for me. One of them turned out to be a keiki and the other one did nothing. So the keiki is now in the pot with the rest because it's got a significant root system. The other nubbin never did anything. So I'll show you that. Where is it? So can you see that right there by my thumb? That's another, no, you can't because the camera's in a very bad, my hand is not in a good spot for the camera to work properly. So you see that little nubbin right there? That never did anything, but the keiki was right here. So I got two nubs. I thought they were bloom spikes. I was super excited. One turned into a keiki and one did nothing. But this orchid was severely infested with spider mites, severely. And it took me a really long time to eradicate them. I used a mixture of dish soap, alcohol, and water. And I would just douse the orchid until everything was saturated so that basically I would suffocate the little critters and just leave it in the sink covered in that stuff for hours. And then I go back with warm water and I would rinse the soap off of the leaves. And it took quite a while for me to get rid of them. So she was not in this grow room at all until like this week because I finally think that I got rid of them. I mean, I don't see any signs of them. And I'm hoping I got rid of them. I'm still making sure her leaves aren't touching any other orchid. But yeah, so if you have the time to look up this orchid, I mean, those blooms are insanely beautiful. So super excited about them. So anyways, that's the one I forgot about. Don't we always forget about one of our orchids when we're filming? But yeah, so I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah, so those are my Dendrobiums. I have a lot of Phalaenopsis in bloom right now. I have a few Oncidium type spikes coming. I have a first time Phalaenopsis bloom. This is one of the plants I bought out of bloom, so I wasn't sure what color her flowers were going to be. So they're just white, kind of plain. I don't really love white flowers. I know some people think that they're really crisp and beautiful, but it's not my favorite. But it's fine. She can stay. So anyways, that's my Dendrobiums. that's how I grow them. If you have any questions, I will definitely answer them, and I will try to keep cranking out these culture videos because I know a lot of you had questions about how to grow orchids in water culture. So I hope you all are having a great week so far, and I will talk to you all next time.